this now? What the F? Is your device really listening to you? What the F? Does the Illuminati actually exist? What's the FAQ?
Tonight, we find out
what will be the last job to be taken over by artificial intelligence.
Why do your fingernails keep growing after you die?
How do caterpillars turn into butterflies?
How do they work out the nutritional information for food labels?
But first...
Hello? Hello?
Oh my God, how did people wake up on time before they had alarm clocks? I've got no idea. Hey Matthew, can you please pad for me for a sec while I get myself ready?
Sure.
Thanks. Audience, this here is Matthew Champion. He's an expert on timekeeping history. So when did mechanical alarm clocks first become a thing?
Weight-driven mechanical alarm clocks become a thing from the 14th century, but we start seeing wall clocks, so the kind of clocks you can see hanging with their weights on the wall, in the 15th century. And there you could move little pins around little holes on the clock face to set an alarm that would set off some bells ringing.
Oh!
Then in the 16th century, you start seeing portable clocks that you can carry around with you, pocket watches that you can wear on your person. You set a little alarm that goes ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
And after you get through the 16th century, we're into the period of the Industrial Revolution. So in the late 19th century, you start seeing alarm clocks, which everyone can own in their home.
Okay, and what did people use to wake up before then?
One of the places where people were really interested in waking up at particular times was the monastery. Bells played a really important role, so you could get up and chant your prayers on time. And in Orthodox Christian communities was this astonishing wooden board called the semantron.
Interesting, keep going.
So another place that was super interested in making sure people woke up on time was the city. In medieval Europe, they developed things like trumpeters sounding from city walls, bell towers. In medieval China, you'll see examples of bell towers and huge drum towers, some of which are still standing today. And then, of course, there was the ubiquitous rooster.
Thanks, Matthew. People have been waking up to the rooster since the chicken was domesticated 8,000 years ago. Roosters know when the dawn is, even when they can't see the sunrise. The only problem is they leave seed and crap everywhere. And oh, Sebastian! Tell me about the alarm clock after the rooster.
So one of the most ancient forms of alarm clock was a water clock. We know that it existed in ancient Babylon, Egypt, India, China, and also in ancient Greece. It was called a clepsydra, which means a water thief.
I think I've seen that one. That's the water clock they call Plato's alarm clock, yeah?
Yeah.
Basically, you fill tank A up, which slowly fills tank B up. Then when tank B is full, it fills tank C up super quickly through that funny-looking siphon, which then pushes the air quickly out at D, blowing the whistle. I don't know, maybe Plato was a light sleeper. So anyway, we had water clocks for a while, presumably also hourglasses.
No, not hourglasses. They only came in the 14th century, the same time as mechanical clocks.
Really? So how did the ancient Egyptians play Pictionary then? Sebastian! I'm at work! What are you doing? Oh, come on! Sebastian! Okay, so we're in the 19th century now. We've got mechanical clocks. Is there anything else? Sebastian! Try to conduct the interview! Later! Was there anything else?
In the 19th century, before everyone had their own alarm clock, there were people who would walk around the streets of towns, particularly in England, called knocker-uppers. Their job was to sort of get you out of bed at the right time. They might have a long stick to tap on your window. Some of them had pea shooters.
Not a bad idea, although there'd be some obvious potential drawbacks. Oh,
So finally, the Chinese invented all kinds of alarm clocks based on burning things. Wonderful little incense clocks where you'd burn a path through a little maze of incense and you could put different incense at different points so you could smell, as it were, a change in time at 15 minutes or so.
Today, I use a similar technique that can tell me exactly when it's half an hour too late to rescue my biscuits. And I also like this method for the truly hardcore sleepers. The Chinese would light a cord, they'd pop it between their toes, and then they'd let it burn down.
Chaz? Cheers. Well, that worked.
What's the FAQ?
Why do your fingernails keep growing after you die? They don't. It's a myth. When you die, the skin and soft tissue dehydrate, shrinking around the nail, creating the optical illusion that your nails are still growing. Just think of it as a stunning natural manicure to enter the afterlife in style. I really hope the person who sent in that question's like an undertaker, otherwise that's a really creepy question.
What's the FAQ?
Glenn from Albert Park asks, why did those old Greek statues have such small dicks? Thanks, Glenn. Time to do some research.
First of all, I had to check if the premise of Glenn's question was even correct. And it sure seemed to be. Here were these immortal gods and legendary heroes like Zeus and Heracles. Muscles taut and bulging, pecs gleaming, but their penises were modest, compact, like a Ford Fiesta. But was that how big real penises were in ancient Greece? Is that how big real penises are now?
Hey, Cam, quick question. How big is your...
I have to go.
Just gonna ask you about your penis size. Pictures of real penises, 2023. Huh,
I'm not sure you should be looking up that kind of stuff here.
why not? I was just doing research!
Maybe it was time to continue my research at a venue with less zealous security, like a museum.
First things first, were these ancient Greek statue penises actually that small compared to real life?
There's no reason to think that normal penises in everyday life would have been as small as the ones that are represented. Instead, we believe that it's an artistic choice.
And I imagine that there would have been a bit of shrinkage going on because the bronze or the marble would be quite cold.
There's no reason to think there's any kind of shrinkage.
All right, so who have we got here?
We refer to him as the diadem wearer in English, and he was an athlete.
So did all the athletes look like that?
They wish, I imagine. No, it was the ideal state. Each of the elements of the body, with possibly the exception of the penis, were all exactly in proportion to one another.
Yeah, right, and that's really tiny, isn't it?
I think it would have been small, but not quite that small. I think most of it is missing in this case.
Wow, amazing he could still win after that happened to him. So these weren't realistic depictions of men from the day?
No, there would have been some amazing physiques, but not everybody would have looked like this.
And the small penis was part of that ideal form?
Absolutely. The idea was that it was showing the way in which men were supposed to behave. So restraint and thoughtfulness and all of these kinds of things were considered to be masculine qualities that one would hope to achieve. And so a small, flaccid penis was a visual representation of this.
But I mean, if that was Zeus, he was a pretty horny god, wasn't he? He was always going around.
He did all right. I believe he had over 40 children. So virility and penis size in the ancient world didn't really correlate.
What's your proof for all of this? Because it kind of sounds like something a historian with a small penis might have made up just to feel better about themselves.
Textual evidence isn't very strong. Aristophanes' Clouds is really the only one that mentions penis size.
If you carry out these things I mentioned, you'll always have a gleaming chest, bright skin, broad shoulders, tiny tongue, strong buttocks, and a little prick.
A tiny tongue? So did this work the other way then? Did this mean that a big penis was seen as a sign of moral weakness?
It did. It was often shown as an inability to control yourself, which was reviled in ancient Greece. So it was always associated with satyrs or enemies or the outsider, the non-Greek, the non-citizen, the barbarian other. And it was a way of differentiating visually how superior the Greeks were in comparison to everybody else.
So a bigger penis was sort of ridiculed then or looked down upon?
Completely. It was always in plays and you could tell because it was slapstick comedy with somebody walking around with a gigantic penis.
So where would we see these depictions of these people with larger penises?
For the most part, it's in pottery, less so in statuary.
She wasn't wrong. On vases and wine cups, big erect penises are everywhere, letting it all hang out. And they belong to drunk, randy, half-goat, half-man, mythical creatures called satyrs, followers of Dionysus, the god of fertility and wine, the fun uncle of the ancient Greek gods. And then there was Priapus, a minor god cursed with a permanent erection who was kicked out of Mount Olympus for giving all the other gods the ick.
So it seems like the ancient Greeks were even more obsessed with penises than us. Not like you and me, like society.
I'm not sure that I'd agree with that. I think that there's been a kind of ongoing penis obsession throughout history and throughout cultures. And it's interesting to see that the ideals of male beauty have been put on men since ancient Greece through to now.
So, Glenn, it looks like the old Greek statues had smaller penises to symbolise their nobility, intellect and superiority, while an oversized penis was seen as barbaric, vulgar and ridiculous. Which just goes to show that while cultural standards may change, making normal people feel bad about their bodies is forever. What? What a dick.
Marianne's question, how do caterpillars turn into butterflies, is one that has inspired our favourite artists for generations. But while most people know the basics of how this becomes this, the real question is what happens in there. But let's find out. I'm meeting with entomologist Sky, the bug girl, Blackburn.
So this is a chrysalis.
What actually happens inside the chrysalis? Does it start as a caterpillar and then just grow some wings?
So what actually happens is there's some special enzymes in there that turn the caterpillar into kind of a goo.
Where do the enzymes come from?
They're there the whole time, but they're just held dormant by the juvenile hormone. There's these special things called imaginal discs. They're there the whole time, and they don't get dissolved by the enzymes. Each one contains the genetic instructions to form a different part of the adult butterfly. They feed on the caterpillar soup and grow into legs or eyes, genitals, and even wings.
So the caterpillar liquefies itself and then eats itself?
Yeah, and then about 2 weeks later, it'll emerge as a beautiful moth.
Butterfly! What? We just care about the butterflies though, right?
No, moths are really important for our environment too. They're fantastic pollinators.
Yeah, whatever. Good for moths. But back to the butterflies. So is the butterfly an entirely different creature from its caterpillar?
Kind of yes and kind of no. So what actually happens is the caterpillar can send some of its memories forward into the butterfly stage.
How do we know that?
So back in 2008, scientists conducted a study.
First, the scientists gathered some caterpillars.
Look, why am I here?
For science! They conditioned the caterpillars to have a negative response to a particular chemical smell by exposing them to it.
Hey! What's that?
And then giving them electric shocks.
This is real!
10 seconds at a time.
Shit, that hurts!
Repeatedly.
Ow! Ow! Stop it! Couldn't you have done that in graphics?
Yeah, we could have.
This is what happens when you hire a fucking kid's podcast.
Then, they put the caterpillars into a Y-shaped tube with the chemical smell circulating in one side and normal air on the other side.
So humiliating. Stick that cow prod up your ass, you prick. Oh God, not that again. This way, this way.
78% of the caterpillars who had been conditioned to avoid the bad smell chose the side with non-smelly air.
Thank God.
Well done. Have a leaf. Then the caterpillars turned into moths. Sky was right. There are some beautiful moths.
Couldn't you have found a better costume than this?
Yeah, we could have.
Oh my God.
In you go.
I don't think I do want to go. Ow!
Then they ran the same test again with the moths those caterpillars had turned into.
This costume is nothing like a moth, mate! Ah! They did not do this in the experiment!
Choose a side. And 77% of the adult moths
Not that, no!
also chose the side with non-smelly air.
Yes!
Showing that the behaviour they'd learned as caterpillars was retained through the metamorphosis.
I just don't see how any of this was... Now you mongrel!
So there you go, Marion. Caterpillars turn into butterflies by dissolving inside their chrysalis. They then feed on their own goo to regrow an entirely new body from a handful of special imaginal discs, all the while treasuring precious memories they made from their first life. Incredible, huh?
Incredible, you mongrel!
What will be the last job to be taken over by artificial intelligence?
The machines aren't just coming, they're already here. The robots don't complain, they don't get tired, and they're already taking over many dull, repetitive daily tasks. These are only some of the jobs that artificial intelligence is now encroaching upon. But what's next? To find an artificial intelligence expert, I used a primitive tool of yesteryear, Google. Before we begin, I need to check whether you've been replaced. Please point to the traffic lights.
2 down, 3 across.
Yes?
Yep.
Thank you, human. Now, the most common question that was submitted to us was actually, will AI take our jobs? Are we justified in this sphere?
Not completely, but it's not crazy. There's certainly a lot of labour-intensive tasks that have become really easy recently thanks to AI. But, you know, it's like any automation. So whether it actually costs someone their job is more down to how the employer wants to run their business rather than any particular technology.
OK, but if my parents were here, they'd also ask, what about doctors?
Yeah, so the really structured part, like noticing patterns in a patient's symptom and turning that into a diagnosis. There's sort of a lot of current research around getting AIs to do that. But recently, ChatGPT passed the US medical exam, and there was another team of researchers who got a machine learning algorithm to diagnose patients with more accuracy than a human could. But on the other side, there's things like, you know, bedside manner that an AI is absolutely not going to replicate in the near term, at least.
But what about creative jobs, like artists, writers, or my job?
So I reckon you could take an AI and feed it a bunch of comedy writing. It would put out something that looked like a comedy set. It'd have setups, punchlines, callbacks. But I can't think of anyone who's actually looking into that at the moment.
Well then, looks like there's only one way to find out. ChatGPT is an AI chatbot that answers questions from the public. Many claim it's incredibly human-like. But can it write good enough jokes to steal this job?
Are you ready for your special guest? Give it up for the always amazing Lawrence Long!
Hey guys, have you heard about this thing called AI? Now, can you imagine trying to outsmart a robot? You'd be like, hey robot, I bet you can't tell me what comes after ABC. And the robot will be saying, I know what comes after A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Bear in mind, the knowledge data set of ChatGPT cuts off at around late 2021. So the comedy references can feel a little bit dated. So why did Harry and Meghan's Oprah interview go a little bit wrong? Because they revealed that even royals can have their crown jewels cut off. Why did the chicken cross the road in 2021? To go to the nearest vaccination centre.
Your shit!
Luckily, I also asked ChatGPT to prepare some heckler comebacks. I don't have the time or the crayons to explain this to you. Anyway, that's my time. Thanks for coming out. So, Tom, what did you think?
That was horrible.
So, AI failed. I mean, I completely crashed and burned on stage there, so that means my job is safe, right?
From AI, yeah. I'm not sure that your job's safe generally after that, but yeah, it sounds like you have nothing to worry about from AI for now.
Phew, thanks, Tom.
But maybe not for the future.
This is great news. This totally goes against what traditional experts in job security once thought. In fact, I think I should tell them. Oh, hey, Mum and Dad.
Hi.
Hey, listen, I'm just calling to tell you that doctors and lawyers will be replaced by AI and robots. And it seems like my job is pretty safe for now. So if being a comedian is now a respectable and stable job, are you guys proud of me now? Cool chat, guys. Thanks.
You know, maybe future robots might be able to do stand-up comedy, but they'll never be able to replicate that. The shaming, the disappointment, the stubborn obsession with doctoring. Or could they? Could the final frontier for AI be raising kids? Or will robots learn how to do that too? After all, how different are exhausted parents from mindless automatons anyway? For this new AI test, I asked Andy, one of our writers, if he would let me take care of his twins for a whole afternoon. So this experiment with your kids involves...
Great. Bye. Love you.
Love you too. With these identical 6-year-olds, I went head-to-head against artificial intelligence in a babysitting challenge. In the first trial, I tried to entertain and impress Arlo, using nothing but my natural parenting instincts. I think it went okay. We established he likes chess, but doesn't like magic. And we didn't have to make phone calls to any emergency services. Any real ones, at least. And now it's AI's turn. I'll be looking after twin brother Finn, but this time I'm gonna go in wearing this earpiece. And I'm only gonna do and say what I'm told to by our support crew in the next room. They're gonna be feeding our interactions into ChatGPT and then dictating babysitting instructions that the AI generates.
Hi there. My name is your name.
Hi there. My name is your name.
Your actual name.
Your actual name. After a rocky start, I'm going to be your friend and someone you can count on while your parents are away. Things started to improve. We're going to have a lot of fun together, playing games, reading books, and going on adventures.
Things to say to impress a 6-year-old.
I can do a handstand. Do you have a guitar? We're good. We should form a band. What should we be called? I got some ideas. The Dynamic Duo. The Junior Jammers. The Rhythm Rangers.
The egg.
Egg?
Egg.
We're the egg! With both tests complete, it was time to find out who was better at babysitting, human or AI.
All right, kids. How much should Daddy pay the babysitter?
$20.
The robot babysitter won. Nobody really knows what would be the last job to be taken by AI. We don't know if it would ever master the deep interpersonal complexities of parenting, but at least in my challenge, it won this round. Robot overlords, here's your babysitting money. Oh, and you can have this for free.
How do they work out the nutritional information for food labels? Not the type of question you normally find on a Fantails wrapper, Eleanor, but a good one nonetheless. Eleanor's referring to these 7 values that food manufacturers have to calculate and place on all Australian packaging by law. And with good reason. We commissioned an essential poll that found 40% of Australians look at nutritional labels often or always. And I know firsthand that some people take the numbers on those labels very seriously. So, how do they come up with them?
Oi!
Suchas!
Lunch!
This is the National Measurement Institute, where the nation's most elite measurers measure things. Nationally. Could you tell us how you guys here work out what the nutritional components of food is?
Well, we've got a number of methods that basically we use for determining different components in food. Each of those methods are obviously unique for that particular test.
Now, we're not going to take you through the details of all those tests because this isn't a science class, but believe me when I say they are sciencey. Look at all those test tubes. And we ran Chaz's lunch through every one of those tests to find that the results were pretty close to what was on the label.
Pretty close? 18% off for sodium.
Well, you're not going to get a bullseye.
All of our results have what's known as a measurement uncertainty attached to it. Everything is within a range.
Well, that's fair enough, but not all foods get sent to this lab for testing. So to find out how the rest of them work out their numbers, I went to Food Standards Australia and New Zealand for SANS.
What happens if a company can't send their product to a lab for analysis?
So there's a few other options, and one of those is to use a calculator. We have one on our Food Standards website called the Nutrition Panel Calculator. So it's a free online tool that we developed back in 2001 when it became mandatory for foods to have a nutrition information panel.
So anybody can use it?
Anybody.
And it's free?
Free.
Shari explained that if I wanted to create a nutritional label for, say, a pickle, celery, salami, strawberry yogurt, chocolate mousse and croissant smoothie, I could simply input the ingredients into their calculator, and the nutritional values for each ingredient would come from the thousands of foods in their database. Let's have a look at the calculator and how it works. And so if we look up celery now in that database...
This one's a little bit older, it's from the 1980s.
In fact, lots of items in food databases were tested decades ago. The values for marmalade, canned apricots and frankfurters are all over 30 years old, whereas others, corn chips for example, were tested quite recently. Okay, but companies may or may not be using your database and calculator, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's not mandatory to use the NPC. It's actually completely up to the company to get their data in the best way that they think is right for their product.
So how do you check whether their theoretical calculations match the reality of their food?
That's not actually our role.
It's not?
It's not.
Turns out the rules are theoretically enforced by state and territory departments, but it doesn't seem to happen much in practice. Because when we asked those 8 authorities how often they check the accuracy of nutritional information panels, they couldn't tell us. 2 of them ignored us completely.
What?
2 said they perform occasional checks but wouldn't tell us how many.
Occasional?
And 4 said they only check labels in response to complaints.
Right.
But how many complaints do you think they actually receive about these labels? Who would make them?
As a taxpayer, I'm extremely disappointed in what I perceive...
Sweetie, even if they were checking regularly, the law doesn't actually place any limits on the accuracy of nutritional information panels. Unlike in America, where they only allow values to be inaccurate by up to 20%.
OK, so if the law doesn't demand accuracy and no one's even really checking accuracy, how can we possibly know how accurate these things are?
Well, as far as I can tell, the last time anyone thoroughly looked into the accuracy of Australia's nutritional labels was in 2006, when John Howard was still our cricket captain. That 2006 study found a significant discrepancy between actual and declared values. Only 7% of the values on the labels were exactly the same in reality. And 40% of the samples had fats and sugar values that were so inaccurate they would have been illegal in America. Now, there were some nutritional values that were quite accurate, such as cholesterol, but trans fatty acid values were wrong in every sample, and in one case were higher than what they said on the label by 1,200%.
I think I'm having a stroke.
You're fine, I'm just burning toast. So there you go, Eleanor. The nutritional information on food labels comes either from direct testing or from databases of ingredients that were, at some point, tested by someone.
And aren't being checked or enforced by anybody.
Cool your jets. Even if the government forced 100% lab tests by the best measurers in the world, the results still wouldn't be perfect.
Food itself is inconsistent. It changes with the seasons, how ripe it is, where it's grown, how it's processed.
Nutritional science is inherently messy. Deal with it. Look, the important thing is that overall, you have a healthy, balanced diet. Like mine.
First up, Peter asks, is the black stuff on store-bought mushrooms dirt and is it safe to eat? We asked Big Mushroom and they told us that since mushrooms are fungi and not plants, they don't grow in soil, they grow in compost. So the black stuff is compost. Now, the compost is pasteurised at 80 degrees for several days, so the Australian Mushroom Growers Association says it is safe to eat, but if baked peat isn't your thing, they recommend wiping it off anyway. What does the tattoo on the young lady's arm say? Archibald, your decrepit old eyes were protecting you, but since you want to know, it says live, love, ass. Yep, there are 3 S's on the ass. Yes, I was drunk when I got it. Yes, I'm no longer in my parents' will. And no, I will be taking no further questions at this time, but thank you for asking. On Kitchen Cabinet, does Annabelle crab talk more or does her interview subject? Sounds to me, Chris, like this question might be a little biased, but we timed her anyway. We picked 4 randomly chosen episodes from this current series, and we found out that Annabelle, on average, speaks for 32.3% of each episode, whereas her guests speak for 59.4%. Even if you added her voiceovers, it would only add 2.5% to the tally, so it is not even close. But if that is not enough Annabelle for you, Chris, may I suggest you try her podcast too? What happened to the hole in the ozone layer and why isn't it talked about anymore? You're right, Robbie. The hole in the Earth's ozone layer was hot goss in the 80s when it was growing rapidly, but then the 1987 Montreal Protocol came in and it cracked down on chlorofluorocarbons, which were creating that hole. And it worked. The hole started leveling out in 1999 and then it began to shrink a little. That is until some people in China started using CFCs again and the hole started growing again. But according to this UN report, things are getting back on track. And scientists project that all the holes in the ozone layer could be gone within the next 40 years. But the bottom line is the hole is still as big as it's ever been, and maybe we should be talking about it more. Thankfully, we just did. Can smoking, drinking, and partying in your youth really stunt your growth? Look, I've done absolutely no research into this, but do you remember that tattoo? It says, live, love, ass. And I am 6'4". Case closed. Finally, with 30 seconds left, our last question for the series comes from Ash, who asks, when considering quantum mechanics, is it reasonable to account the observer effect upon the collapse of the wave function as evidence that the universe is a simulation, or whether the entire observable universe is just one statistical slice in a matrix of parallel universes? And if either of these propositions, oops, we're out of time. Thank you so much for your questions. Thank you for watching the show. We're not done answering questions yet, so if you have any more questions, please head over to the Chaz from What the FAQ Facebook page where you can find us until hopefully we will see you on the box again. See ya.
What the FAQ?